I'm Bankole Makwede. That's Ayo in them. That's William Goodman. And we're here to talk about Industry Season 4, Episode 7, and a million internet voices screaming in glee. But before we get into that, I want to share something with you guys I don't think I've actually said publicly on the podcast or anywhere, really. It has been the case for months. I am very excited for Project Hail Mary. I don't think I've actually mentioned that. I don't think we've discussed that, Ayo.
Interesting. No.
I don't know why,
Have you
but
read
like,
the book?
no. Where I stopped. I don't read. My literacy crisis. I don't read anymore. But like, I don't know. I'm just like, first of all, I'm a big fan of like Fawn Gosling. Very big fan of Fawn Gosling. I don't think there's a Fawn Gosling film I don't like. And I realized randomly that like I'm also a big fan of like Lord and Miller. Like
Fair.
there's some guys that just like, oh, you realize that like, yeah, most times they just kind of hit. Like you don't think of them, but like just like 21 Jump Street, Lego Movie, obviously the animated Cloud. I was like, oh, I actually do really like these guys. So yeah, just wanted to share that I'm very excited for Project Hail Mary. William, are you?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of posited last fall that if that movie had come out during, I think, the October to November corridor pre-award season, that we could be having a real conversation for it in the Oscar race. I think now between Sinners and One Battle, things have kind of settled out, but there was a while there where I think if Hail Mary had come out, it could have been a contender for this season. But I like the fact that we're getting like a big, splashy blockbuster movie in March, April, somewhere in there. I can't remember what the exact release date
I
is,
think it's
but
March. Yeah.
to your point, I have never watched a Lord and Miller movie that I did not like.
Mm-hmm.
And Gosling, even when he's in movies that I think are maybe not as good, he is frequently the best parts of them. So yeah, I'm excited about it, but I'm not as excited about it, or I'm more excited to talk about this episode of Ministry than I am to talk about that movie. So
You know what? Excellent segue. I'm never going to follow up. Let's just go. Let's go into the episode. Hello and welcome back to the Popcorn for Dinner podcast. And welcome to the only dance floor in London with very specific lighting. I'm Bankole Makwede, and we're about to get into a long discussion about the penultimate episode of Industry Season 4. And joining me today, along with the numerous Andrew Tate clones and Russian bots, we're close enough for honesty. It's Ayo and William. How you guys doing?
What's my name first?
Because you're the regular. What is this?
You
What
think
is
I
this?
have more proximity to Tate?
Oh,
I don't know, Banky.
the reason is that a guilty conscience? Because like I don't know why you got that impression. Anyway, William, how are you?
the girls are fighting. I'm doing well, gentlemen.
We're always
How are y'all?
It's been
like
a
I
good
said-
week. It's been a good week.
Why
Great
has it been a
episode of
good week?
Industry. Lots of
Uh-huh.
community building. I'm building my village, guys. I feel like we all have to have a village.
On what platform? In real life?
Yeah, in
On-
real life, Banky, in my
Oh.
life.
everything I think about is through internet engagement. So like when you say real life, I don't know, what does that mean? Like you hug people and you like tell them you like them in real life?
I actually hugged someone I worked with this week, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of.
I would never do that with a coworker. To be clear, I am like firmly. Although that's an interesting conversation, I think, for this episode,
For
given
this episode,
the
yeah.
coworkerly dynamics between Yasmin and Harper that are on display at the very end there, and how they once started out as coworkers but are now
Exactly.
something far different. But yeah, I don't know. I've been through enough jobs where I think at a certain point you have to put a little bit of distance between you and your coworkers sometimes.
Well, you know what? In a different episode, we might go into the backstory there, but we have a lot to talk about this episode. Just quick admin, because when William was here for episode 6, we didn't even get to discuss his coverage of Industry this season.
You mean episode 4?
Was it 4?
Yeah.
It was 4. 6 was last week. You know what? I'm tired, guys. I'm
blurred.
really tired. I'm really tired. But William, you are covering this show weekly. Do you want to let listeners know where? and how they can
Sure.
find
Yeah. I
it?
mean, I've done a couple of interviews throughout the season. You can find those on Men's Health and GQ. Hopefully, there will be a couple of more before the season concludes. But I'm covering the show weekly on the episodic medium. It's not a Substack; it's a ghost email newsletter. We have migrated platforms away from Substack, but for folks listening who are maybe familiar with the source, I think, for a lot of television recaps comes in two different forms, right? I think it comes from the Star Ledger guys, which would be Matt Zorsites and Alan Sepinwall, who were recapping Sopranos for the New Jersey Star Ledger when that was airing, and then subsequently went on to do their own things. And really, I think Alan and Matt are really like the Roger Eberts of television criticism. So they're one half of it, and then the other half of it is AV Club in the heyday of the AV Club, and Miles McNutt, who was the long-term reviewer for The Office for a while. The Chicks in the Office podcast, they frequently reference his AV Club recaps as sort of their litmus test for how it was received critically. All this hand-wringing to say, Miles has a Substack e-newsletter, not Substack, e-newsletter called Episodic Medium that I have been covering this season and also covered last season for. It's $5 a month, so if you want to check it out, that would be really great. The recap for the premiere episode was free, so you can go back and read that, and if you enjoy it, please shoot a subscription. You can also just wait until episode 8 comes out and then read everything for the entire season. Or if you wanted to subscribe for this month, that'll kind of carry you through to the finale. But that's where you can find my work on this show.
Yeah.
And then also on Twitter, although I'm trying to be a little less on social media writ large these days, outside of kind of just posting my articles and then bouncing.
Yeah. I'll put a link to the premiere recap in the descriptions and show notes so people can go check that out. Anyone's watching on YouTube or Spotify would have seen us, Aya and I, nodding aggressively when you mentioned AV Club, because that was we read a random Steppenwall article here and there, but AV Club was like our introduction and like really kind of going through every episode of every show that we're watching. And I don't know, I would call it, I'm like, you won't believe which episode got an F this week. Like an AV Club F was like a big deal. I was like,
And an A.
I mean, Sepinwall was I really started with his Breaking Bad and his Mad Men recaps, especially his Mad Men recaps. I mean, to me, he was so synonymous with my critical opinion of the show. When I think of Mad Men, I really do think of Alan. And my goal, whenever somebody ever talks to me about like what I'm looking for aspirationally, especially with industry, my goal has always been, I want somebody somewhere to hopefully have that same level of association with me in this show that I had with Alan and Mad Men, where it's like, I can't wait to read what William's going to have to write about, the interviews that he's doing, whatever the case may be. So if I am anywhere even remotely close, I think to that same comparison, I'm tremendously happy. But that's the last self-aggrandizing I'll do here.
I mean, that was kind of like the same thing we seen, especially with industry as well. I just like, want people to think about us when they think about an industry episode. Okay, just some other things. We also covering Night of the Seven Kingdoms. The latest episode will be out on audio platforms as you listen to this, and probably out on YouTube either right now or in a few hours. Our second installment in our MCU 12 series, where if you're new to the podcast, that's where we're kind of covering one MCU film, our top 12 to 1 from January to December. Both of these guests will make an appearance at some point this year. So you can look forward to that. Okay. You look forward to that. This week's episode of Industries, season 4, episode 7, titled Points of Emphasis, written and directed by show creators, show directors, mad geniuses, Mickey Down and Conrad K. My notes for this episode started devolving into an article, so I had to stop. But I'll start with you.
Don't start with me. Come back to me. Come back to me.
Okay, William, do you have any big picture thoughts about this episode before we get into like the nitty gritty? Because I'm sure we'll get into the nitty gritty.
Sure. Yeah, I've been working to peel the curtain back a little bit. We're recording this ahead of time. I've been working on my recap for episode 6. Kind of in conjunction with preparing for this episode. And, I think 6 was a very splashy episode for a lot of reasons, right? I think that is really when we see kind of the curtain fully pulled back as to what the game of this season is. And in the structure of that, I would say a lot of the rising action that maybe would historically have been reserved for the penultimate episodes
Yeah.
happens in episode 6.
hmm
And 7 is really dealing with a lot of the fallout of that. It's an interesting, I think, structural shift for the series because I think so much happens during the course of both episode 6. You do almost need a protracted, drawn out, more kind of conclusion, which we'll presumably see in the finale, but then certainly we see here in episode 7. And a lot of it really is just dealing with the immediate fallout, the revelations that we find, especially on the Tender side of things, what Whitney's involvement with Sebastian is. There's a lot more of there as it relates to this. Obviously, the letter of incrimination that Henry receives from Whitney is a critical part of this. And then it really is, I think, it's about escapes or lack thereof. That is something that is continually brought up throughout the course of this
Uh,
episode, both in literal points of dialogue, but then also, I think, in people's behavior. It's very clear to me that everybody's trying to find a way to save themselves, at least on the Tender side of things. I mean, even Sterntal to a
yeah.
certain point, they're trying to figure out basically what they need to do in order to protect themselves because Harper's speech at Alpha was not as detrimental as they thought. That's what opens the episode. On the Sterntown side of things is the understanding that they still need a more prominent negative catalyst to kind of push through that death blow. Meanwhile, Harper doesn't realize this obviously, but Tender is ostensibly dead on arrival. So It's it is everybody, I think, looking at and seeing and understanding that there is a sinking ship, and how do we have some level of self-preservation,
Mm.
and the extent to which people are willing to, I don't wanna say, like, compromise themselves, but the season in general, I think, has been a really interesting study in what characters the red lines that characters may or may not have. In the case
Mm.
of Eric, obviously what happened with Dolly, that was a red line for him to the point where he felt like he needed to completely just
Yeah.
exorcise himself from the complete situation, that he had crossed a line that he couldn't come back from. And I think some of the characters in this episode are figuring out what those red lines are for themselves and how malleable they're willing to be. And I think that is where a lot of the high moments in this episode really come from, are people navigating their escapes and what they're willing to do to achieve those while also butting up against or skirting those self-imposed red lines that they have.
Yeah. As William just mentioned, we're recording slightly earlier than we normally would, so we won't get to any of your questions from episode 6.
6.
But if we don't respond to them online, we will get to them in our 2-hour recording on the finale next week. I've already made my peace with that. Ayo, can I come to you now? Are you ready?
Yeah. Can I shock you?
Yeah.
I think similar to you, going from episode 2 to 3,
Yeah.
this episode didn't really land for me.
The whole episode or parts of the episode?
Parts of it. And I think that's the interesting part, right? Because I feel
Mhm.
like it felt like two things we kind of tried to jam together in one
Mhm.
episode, right? So the first bits of the episode, like the first part of the episode, maybe the first 40 minutes, are very propulsive.
Mhm.
And I was there, I was along for the ride. But maybe all 3 times I watched this episode, towards the end, it just starts to lose my attention. Like
Okay.
like one of Eric's kids. Just
It doesn't
can't hold
demand
my
decision.
attention anymore.
Is that based on just how it's written, how it's edited, like what, because I think the back half of this season, I think really from 5 forward, the execution here is so much tighter and so much more well constructed than I think we have seen on the show in the
Yeah.
past. I think that has
Mhm.
been one of the things that was like flagged very early on. I think Allison Herman's review for Variety does a very good job of conveying this, is that there's a lot of machinations and setup and plot movement in the first 4 episodes that really set up these dominoes for the series to
Mhm.
then go through and just knock everything down. So I think once we're in this position, it is I find the pacing on a show that has already been very, very okay, very comfortable, very liberal with kind of blowing through almost seasons worth of plot in the course
Yeah.
of 30 minutes, that it's very lean to me in terms of what it is doing and how it's captivating that. So I can maybe understand if structurally some of the things that they jump to maybe feel a little quick, and I'm guessing maybe that's what you're rubbing against, but
Yeah.
like nothing in this episode rings false to me based
Or
on what
hollow.
the
Yeah.
setup that they have done
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah.
I would maybe agree that it moves a little more rapid than I would like, but that is also just a hallmark of the show, is that they move through things with such an accelerated pace that you almost can't keep up with it sometimes.
So it was a
Mm-hmm.
bit of that, but I think also a bit of, like you said, I think the setup was done so well that when the dominoes start to fall, it's like, okay, I knew this domino was going to fall. So it's like, okay, I'm watching the scene and I know what's going to happen. And it's not like from a plot perspective, even from the emotional beats that we're going to hit. And we'll talk about
Okay.
that when we're talking
Yeah,
about like a lot
let's
of the
as
YasHarper things. But yeah.
yeah, I think as we go in, you can then obviously highlight things that didn't work, because there are some for me as well. Um, I was like you, Ayo, I was watched this episode 3 times, and I've really thought about this episode all week. I was a bit emotional rewatching it last night,
Oh, say more.
but not in the Harper and Eric scene kind of emotions, right? And this is, guys, bear with me. It's going to be take a second, because as listeners of this podcast know, I've always said that, like, we're not necessarily unbiased judges of this show, right? We try our best. Like, we will critique when something doesn't work for us, like Ayo is doing right now. I did episode 3, right? Like, we're going to be honest. But this show is so attuned to us that more and more it becomes less likely for there to be things that don't work for us, just as a whole. And like, it's for me particularly, it's scratching a particular itch. Certain synapses are going off my brain that are just so attuned to what the show is doing and what I want and everything. So I'm just really in the bag for the show. And a lot of the great shows that we've watched, Succession, Atlanta, Insecure, Veep, a lot of them make me go, oh, like, oh, I would love to make something like that.
Mm.
Or, oh, I would love like people to connect to my show the way they connect to Insecure, things like that. Industry is the only show where at least once a season I message you, I'm like, I am so, like, it's the only show that inspires me to just go create right there. Like other shows, I'm like, they give me a North Star. Industry kind of almost pumps me up. And that's what this episode did. Like, I was like, again, there are parts of this episode I don't really, like, we'll talk about, like, that just didn't work for me. But like this episode, it makes me feel what Challengers, the end of Challengers made me feel. I'm just like, I want to just go out with the camera and shoot this thing, or go out with the
Fair.
laptop and type this thing. Like, it just always inspires me to do things. And like, there are several reasons, because Mickey and Conrad are like the closest showrunners to kind of our age. They share a lot of like a similar taste. A lot of their filmmaking are instincts that I also have. I'm like, oh, it'd be cool if they do this here, and they do it. So like, all of those things kind of work for me. But like this episode just kind of like, just, I don't know, it just really made me emotional. Just thinking of like the art of creating and wanting to create.
Aw.
All that to say is that I think this is the, out of the 5 they've done, I think this is the best directed episode of Industry, like Mickey and Conrad have done. And that might be a hot take. I'm like, it's probably recency bias, but like, I think 308 and 401 have like the ambition and the dexterity and the skill. 402, as Mock's episode, is obviously what it is, right? But this one, I was really, especially this third watch, I was really attuned to like the things they were doing, like the little things that make directing, especially the music. Like, I
Mm.
have so many music notes in this episode that I wanted to have a music corner, which we've never actually done. But like like what they're doing with the music in this episode is, I have so many thoughts on it, and we're going to talk about it. It's just really good. I was just like, this feels like the best of their directing on the show. So yeah, that's like my big thoughts on this episode. I've been listening to The Promise a lot over the last 24 hours, which I'll talk about. Ayo, so we're going to talk about the Yasmin and Mock scene. We're going to start with that.
Yep.
But Ayo, what's your favorite part of this episode?
That's tough. Because I
I
think it
threw
might
a
be
tough
the
question.
Yasmin and Mock scene. I think it might
Okay,
be that
that
first bit.
then that
But
works.
then also, I really enjoyed Whitney in a way this episode.
I was very intrigued by Whitney this episode.
I really enjoyed. I've never seen, okay, not never, but like it was so fun to watch him really in a corner and try and wiggle and be caught at every angle.
Every corner. Um, why did you love? Let's start with the Yasmin and Mock scene, the opening scene.
Okay. I think
Um,
first of all, obviously Marissa Bella Stan. But I think I think the writing in that scene is probably the best in the episode. Also, some of the delivery I
It
loved.
is the industry version of Marriage Story in a lot of
Oh my
ways.
god, that is a
That
great
is
comp.
I mean, that's the closest we're gonna get to an actual, like, formalized, I think, kind of divorce, pre-divorce fight, right? Like, I think it's very clear based upon how the episode ends and the decisions that Yasmin is making in terms of her own level of self-preservation. She is fully ready to cut ties with Henry, which is
To
not
kill
s
him.
not surprised. Yeah, 100%. And she has threatened that all season long, "If you do this to me again, I will kill you," and she's going to certainly follow suit with that. I do think it's interesting that, as in all fights like that, there are elements of truth on either side of it. And the thing I found, like, very resonant is, and I wanna springboard this into a larger conversation about it, but how believable do you find Henry's point about basically the understanding that's like, I'm trying to be better, I'm trying to make better, do better, how that resonates for the 2 of you? 'Cause I find it very, very I find that very interesting for his character, and I wonder how sort of, sincere that sentiment is, given
Yeah.
his behavior, given his background. So that's kind of like the first point of emphasis of my own that I'd like to kind of bring to the larger
Very
group
nice.
to discuss.
yeah.
Um, I actually read one of the lines he says there, like,
Hmm.
"I'm a good person and the world shall tell that back to me. Otherwise, what am I doing here?" Which I think he really does believe that
Classic
he's
classic thing of, like, I need somebody to I need
to validate it,
like,
right?
I it's like totally joked to death with the idea that you have the difficult men era where it was a lot of just
Hmm.
guys sitting in a corner basically being like, "Am I a good person?"
Am
It's
I a
like,
good person?
if you need to ask the question, then the answer is no. And so I
Yeah.
do find that this conversation point industry's version of that, without pulling the exact same
Yeah.
bit, it's like if you're having to self-mythologize that, there's probably some level of you that believes that is not true.
I think
Yeah.
I think I think he sincerely believes that he's trying to be a good person.
Hmm.
Sure,
I think he knows that he's very flawed, but I think there's also kind of like the blinders that wealth will put on you, right? Like
of
he's been
course.
coddled and, prevented from seeing himself all his life. So I think even in this conversation, right? Because he starts he starts off with, "Yes, what are we going to do? Seriously, what am
What
I
am I going to
going
do?
to do?"
Hmm.
Right? And I think that sentence is everything, right? Because for him, Yasser is not a real person in this, right? There's no weight to her in any of this. Nobody, like he says, nobody cares how she comes out of this. It's all about him. And I think that betrays the selfishness of the character, right? Like it tells you, hey, this guy is still a piece of shit. Like regardless of all the things that he might end up saying, he's still not a good person. But I think he truly believes that trying to be a good person is the only thing that will give life meaning. Which, and I'm going to be very honest with you guys, I believe, right? I'm sorry. I am that guy, right? This is the
You
life of
believe that?
Chuck in me. I think we have to try and be a better people every day. Otherwise,
Yeah,
what the fuck are we doing here for real?
the sentiment I have no I think, and this is the larger point that I think I wanna try to have is, last time I was on, we had this conversation about whether or not how sorry maybe we did or did not feel as it related to Rishi's
Hmm.
behavior, and I think that is something that the show always does a very good balance of, is that nobody is good or bad, it is all shades of gray, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
all shades of morality. I think, if you wanted to, maybe the most, like, quote unquote innocent person in all of this is probably like Sweet Pea
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
Quabana, maybe, but at the same time,
Hmm.
like, a lot of their behavior, Sweet Pea comes out and says it. Like, the whole reason that I am like a dog with a bone in this across situation is because I literally cannot get a job anywhere else. So
Mm.
I am like chained to this in order for my success. Like, but all that to say, the larger point I guess I'm trying to get to here is like, how sympathetic do you feel towards Henry in this specific moment?
Not very. I don't feel a lot of sympathy. I
Mhm.
understand him like on a very
So
academic level,
sympathy
but not.
versus empathy, I should say. Like, how do
Yeah,
we kind of classify those two for him in particular?
zero on both. He starts in this conversation. He's like, it reads like a guru terrorist manifesto, which I can't read as anything other than racist. Like, he doesn't care about Yasmin. He only cares about himself. So I don't know. I found it very hard to be sympathetic for him, but I do believe that he does believe that he's trying to be a better man. Like, even going to one of the things Yasmin asks him, right, is where's the rest of our money?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then he begins to stutter. And then
But I
she
think
says,
that comes from her level of self-preservation too.
no, no,
Like,
no.
I
I mean,
think
I
Yeah.
mean his answer to that question where
oh, yeah.
he bought stock in Tender because I think he truly believes that Tender was doing something good.
I I think to answer William's question again from my point of view, I think if you asked me that question beginning of the season or last season, I'd have called bullshit. But I think after 402 and
Yeah,
his speech at Web Horizon, again, I'm not like holding out torches for Harry Mark, but just like I do believe that he believes this. He has lots of things about him that's still selfish and will make him again his way, like with as Ayaz mentioned in this conversation with Yasmin. But like he does believe he did believe in Lumi, and I think he does believe in
in
Tender or did
Tender,
believe in
yeah.
Tender, and like he believes that if he's not trying to be a good person, again, it's for a selfish reason. Let's be
It is.
clear, is that if he doesn't, he's gonna end up like his father.
He will kill himself. Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely believe that he believes what he's saying.
Do
As
you
to
have
whether I
sympathy or
feel
empathy for him?
I I mean definitely not empathy, right? Empathy is what like you feel like
You
in
can
his
see
shoes,
yourself in
right?
them shoes, yeah.
Um, sympathy maybe because we're watching a TV show and I've seen Wit's point. Like I know what Wit is doing. Like I know that
Fair.
he's like Henry has been like he's had no power in this situation. Like you mentioned it last week about how like Yasmin was a bit unfair because she's the one that brought Wit into their life. The truth is that like Yasmin passed on Wit onto Henry, and like Henry has just been a passing toy. So like I do feel sympathy in that sense.
Yeah.
Like he's not really had control, and I know the big cabal that is going on. So that's I guess I do feel sympathy for him,
Fair.
but like again, not in the sense of like I still think he is. Can you feel sympathy and think he deserves what's happening to him? I don't know.
I'll
Um,
bump up my sympathy. It's now a 10 out of 100.
yeah, and I don't think it's definitely because he's like life is being unfair to him, but at the same time, like
Fuck me, man. I cannot think that
it's
about
like
Henry Mark, man. I'm sorry. Life has been
See,
unfair to him.
no,
I
life
mean,
is being unfair right
Oh,
now. Like this whole tender situation,
but
not
also
in
like
general.
life has been unfair to him in some respects. Like,
Hmm.
again, as a like child of the loss of a father, like, my dad passed away not as young as Henry's was, but like not having a paternal figure in your life or even a parental figure in your life, like
uh,
does significantly make things harder. And I think especially for someone like Henry, who grew up in this like abundance of like wealth and privilege, part of that was granted to him, I think, because of the passing of his father, right? And
Yeah.
how Lord Norton sort of like brought him into this world and I think provided for him in a significant
uh,
way. But it's like that does I want to be clear that like I understand the inherent privilege of someone like Henry and the silver spoon that he has and the opportunities afforded to him because of that. But I still think I can look at that and understand the emotional human side of that and understand
Hmm.
it's like this
yeah.
is a person who's ostensibly never grown past that child who watched his father hang himself, right? Like
Hmm.
Whitney's line about like we stop acting like a child. That's all Henry knows how to do because he's been in this form of arrested
You stop
development
there.
ever
Yeah.
since. And so it's like I get it. And I do, I think, empathize with that side of things and have a tremendous amount of sympathy for him because of it. And I think that is just sort of compounded by the fact that they have found themselves in the situation where they like very unwittingly were, played. And I
A
think that
sociopath.
is like, I do think a lot of it was Whitney preying on Henry's worst possible instincts and
Yeah.
bringing those out, and also Yasmin, I think,
In a
helping
way,
to
Yasmin,
bring
yeah,
out some of
yeah.
those tendencies as well. There's that line, I think, in episode 3 where he's like, "Why do you always bring out the worst parts of me?" And she's like, "Because otherwise nothing else would get done," right? So
Yeah.
there's kind of this understanding that, like, in order for Henry to be a productive member of society, he has to lean into sort of the worst version of himself. And so again, like, I don't Henry is whatever happens to Henry, I know the show well enough to know that, like, he will find a way to crawl back out of this and be fine relative to, like, what we feel is fine, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
he may end up losing everything, he may lose nothing, who knows? But, like, at the end of the day, he is not going to be this is not a Rishi situation for him. He's not going to
Mm-mm.
try and throw himself off of a building and end up on the ground somewhere. Like,
Fingers crossed.
he will be fine.
Yeah. I Let's talk about the music. My first music note of this show, of this episode, is in this scene.
Yeah.
It's hilarious that, like, we're 30 minutes in, I was still on the first scene of the episode. This should be fun. Um, the episode starts with Black, and it starts with the Daft Punk song "Verdi Quo," which will obviously come in later in
Veridis
the
Quo,
Yasmin.
one of my favorite songs from one of my favorite albums of all time.
Fair enough. That's like,
Nice.
you got that, big dog. That's like, that's not anything. I had to Google what song is this. So, like, I'm not really a Daft Punk listener, but that's
I
that.
do I can I just quickly interject that,
Yeah.
like, my head spun when I fired up this episode for the first time and heard that needle drop. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the show has always to me, that song is so emblematic of what I have loved about the series, where it is this modern retelling, especially over the last 2 or 3 seasons,
Mm-hmm.
but this modern retelling of this, like, Victorian class. Like, it is both, like, operatic and new at the same time. It's analog and digital. It's both. It's, it's MP3 and it is a vinyl. Like, it's
Yeah.
the way that it straddles that line between, like, old and new, just in the actual construction of the song, feels like a thesis statement for the show's
I mean,
interests and
even
everything all in once, but then wrapping it around this sort of, like, bookended conversation, these 2 big bookended conversations between and Yasmin being involved, the connective tissue
Yeah.
in both of them.
yeah.
I like the operatic nature of it and the grandiose design that I think it gives the episode as it opens and then as it closes.
Yeah, I mean, just on to that point, the needle drops in this episode range from 1980s electronic pop synth to like a 2000s pop song to obviously Daft Punk. So, like, it again is that
To
kind
a
of
Bowie
range.
cover.
Yeah. So the episode starts with that needle drop, but then it's quickly interrupted by the Yasmin mock scene,
Yeah.
right? Again, let's not spend too much time thinking about it. Just something to think about as we go towards the end of the episode. Like, the Yasmin and mock interrupting the what may now become the YasHarper kind of theme tune. Um, there are 3 points I have in that scene where I think you can see Marisabella's gears turning in her head. Like, as Yasmin, you can see, like, she's beginning to think. The first one is when um Henry says that the letter is a threat, right, from Whitney.
Mhm.
Again, if you look, you can begin to see how the gears are turning. Then when Mock starts shouting at her, saying, like, is what matters, I'm a good person, all of that. So, funny thing, like, first time I watched it without subtitles, I heard the world should tell me I'm a good person.
Same.
But when it says shall, that's a lot more like, I will make the world tell
Yeah.
me whether they like it or not that I am a good person. And then the third time is on the bed, obviously. Like, those are
Yeah.
the 3. You can see, like, yeah, I don't know when exactly she makes a decision, but you can kind of see
I
that
think
the
it's when
thinking
she
is
tells
happening.
him, "It's okay, you're right. You're right. Oh,
So
Henry, you're
that's
right."
after he
After
shouts.
he shouts.
Yeah.
And I think that when the gears are turning again on the bed, is her coming up with a plan. I think the "you're right" moment is her realizing, oh, this guy is not gonna, he doesn't see what's happening here. So I
Yeah.
can't bring him along. That's in
So,
my head, that's when she decides to kill him.
No, that's because the realization that kind of washes over her face, I think, is that understanding of, like, it's time. Henry had that line, "I can't carve you out a place in the world." And so
Yeah.
now
Mhm.
she's in a position where she has to finally do that for herself. She can no longer, I think, continue to be in his orbit, but she's going to use the resources that he's given her to create this space for her. And I
Ye-
think we see a lot of that too with the conversation she has with Lord Norton, where it's like there are elements of what she's saying that are true, but then there are kind of things that are being played up, I think, to fully kind of
Oh,
push. It's the nudge that Norton needs. I think it's very clear to me in that scene. And I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but the two are tied together and linked inextricably, I think, where it's very clear that the two of them, I think, have been trying for and Norton especially, have been trying
Norton's
for a
definitely
very
trying.
long time to save him, and that there is nothing to be done at this point. They have tried every conceivable option. Norton has been, like, critically aware of the dynamic of their relationship, and I think too, one of the things I asked Mickey and Conrad about in season 3 was kind of the understanding, and I can't remember what their answer was, but I have always viewed Norton as like the one sort of like true paternal figure that Yasmin has had in her life that is the healthiest,
mhm,
I think, like male relationship that she has.
mhm.
And it is a very like kind-hearted and nourishing one. So it's not surprising to me it's the two of them that sort of kind of come together and be co-conspirators in this sort of larger plan, I think, to finally that to your point, Io, to kill Henry in this way. Metaphorically, like where
Metaphor.
we
But
I
maybe
want to be clear
Well,
about
maybe
that, but
literally.
like,
I
Maybe
have
literally.
questions. I
I
have
mean,
questions,
they
but
yeah, we'll get there.
so when and yeah, I really wanted to continue Williams thing, but let's finish with the first scene because when they're on the bed, my last note on that scene is when they're on the bed, "The Promise," which is a song by When in Rome, starts playing. Through again another through another Google. The song is a song about love and devotion, right? So it starts to kick in, but then what happens? The light of day just cuts it off. Like once, like Yasmin is clear eyed throughout, but like once bright lights and fresh air comes in, that song stops. Just for a bit of context, this is the first verse of the song. "If you need a friend, don't look to a stranger. You know, in the end, I'll always be there. But when you're in doubt and when you're in danger, take a look all around and I'll be there." So the idea being that like Yasmin and Mock are making this promise to be together and like fight this thing and be friends and not strangers. But then once the day breaks, like that's cut off, and Yasmin is no, like I'm not gonna be the person for you. And that song plays a big part in this episode, which we'll talk about again as we go on. Um, would would the audience be angry if we keep YasHarper to the end? Who should we do first, Yasmin or Mock?
I mean, the episode kept it to the end, so
Okay,
shouldn't
so
we?
let's
Who are
okay.
we?
Who are we to not follow Mickey and Conrad's path? Okay, should we start with Mock? Let's start with Mock. Just do everything about Mock. We'll go to Whitney now. I've watched this episode 3 times, like I mentioned, and Henry's face when the board member says there's nothing to hide has made me laugh every single time.
Literally, literally every time.
Um, so let's talk about Whitney. We spoke about last week. We spoke about Whitney being in love, stroke infatuated with Mark. Did that change? Were we wrong, or did he just get the ick?
That's a very good question. I think we might have been wrong. Or either we're wrong or his drive for survival and self-preservation is overshadowing that love, which we've seen
Mm-hmm.
before, right?
I mean, I do think there is some element of getting the ick, but also like for some people, it's all. I just think about the Mad Men line where it's like you only like the beginning of things. Like now that they know who one another really are, all pretense is gone, and so there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing to. I think the great mystery of Whitney, and this is something that I've written about specifically, and I kind of asked Max Mandel a little bit about this, but there is a kind of Clark Kent Superman duality to him in the sense that like I really view Whitney as an alien trying to be human. In the way that I think the
Just a man.
perfect exemplification of that is when he in the first episode of the season the way that he peels the suit jacket off after he fires the siren folks
Mhm.
feels like a snake shedding its skin. Like
That
there's
that that
there's
that
there's some
always, like, yeah, it always got me. I was always confused about the way he took off that jacket, and this
no,
is a good read, yeah.
it's he is an alien trying to find a way to be human, and now that Henry knows who he is, there's no reason to really be this
To
charming
try.
fellow
Yeah.
anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's this understanding that, you know, I think in some situations I think Yasmin and Henry can look at each other very clear-eyed and understand who they are and what they are to each other, and whether or not that, like,
Mhm.
does or doesn't work is we're dealing with the repercussions of that in real time, right? But for me for here, it is just like a sheer it is disgust. It's something beyond, like, the ick. It's being it's the true definition of co-conspirators. Like, you are in hell together, and there's no way out, and other than to keep going. And then even then, there's salvation is not promised at the end of that, right? But it is, you know, I think in some ways it is kind of like this resigned, just I have no choice now. I
Mhm.
am, you know, I am your captor, or you know, I'm your prisoner and you're my captor, and we have to go through this again. We have to go through hell together at this point. And so I think that is really kind of the dynamic of the two of them, is especially with all Henry can do is really kind of watch as he's been essentially taken captive, and he is a passenger in this ride.
Yeah. That's, I guess, that dolly shot of Whitney walking from his office to Henry's office. The
Mhm.
first
It's
thing that
like a
struck me was that, like,
horror film.
Yeah.
yeah, yes. But also, I felt like Whitney looked frail, or at least more frail than we had seen him.
But I
And I
feel
thought,
like he was sliding. Like he wasn't really walking through.
yeah,
That's
you know, he,
and
yes,
in my
his
head,
gait was interesting.
that's
Yes,
why Henry says you are a reptile.
reptile.
Because he slides into the chair and then he does like this.
Hmm.
He looks at his watch and says,
Yes.
"Bro, what are you doing?"
Yeah,
It
and
was
he's otherworldly. Like he's not of
he's-
this reality,
you're right. He's
and
an
he's not
alien.
of a human nature. And so I think that is like I've always read that performance as like the Whitney that's in front of everybody is a mask, and it's masquerading, and who he really is this just like slimy otherworldly character, and
Yeah,
or extraterrestrial being. And so I think there's also an element of Whitney, I think, kind of has to almost downplay himself a little bit to sort of figure out how he can reassert control. And so I think there is an element of him kind of, if we want to continue the reptile metaphor, he is a snake that is curling up, getting ready to attack.
Yeah.
But he has to figure out, he has to do like a threat level analysis of like what it is that he's walking into. There's an element of like, are we good? Are we not good? Like, how much do I need to, or, you know, how much do I need to, or maybe not need to push you given what I've just told you?
Mm,
It's the equivalent of, uh, I'm gonna set a scene. Say you bring home a nice significant other, and the next morning you know you get up and there is that kind of feeling out situation where it's like, did you have a good time? Did you enjoy
hmm,
yourself? Like now that we've kind of like seen each other in this new light, like where are we? How do we move forward from this? It really is in a lot of ways like a post-coitus, like morning after sequence where it's like, okay, we have to kind of like reestablish where we are with these things, but done through this like completely different lens. But the implications are kind of the same. Like they have to fill each other out once more.
yeah.
And so that's why I think he kind of glides in there, is because he has to almost present himself as more docile before he can then figure out the advantage and shape it to how he wants to attack it.
Yeah, I mean, the snake metaphor, along with Ayo's point about how he glides in, is very interesting because I was thinking about, like, the way he's in black or very dark colors in that scene. And, like,
He's wearing
there's
no,
obviously,
he's wearing, I think, like navy blue pants, but then he's wearing that polo, a knit
hmm,
polo buttoned all the way up.
mm.
yeah. And those are, like, obviously dark colors are slimming, right? So I thought it was meant to, like, make him look frail, but I actually like the idea that it's made to make him look a lot more streamlined, like a snake. So, like, that's actually a better read of this thing. Also, he's like, and we can use this to go through the board meeting and then probably the garage scene in New York. Doesn't have as much a control of his emotions as, because obviously the world is closing in, right? It's
Yeah.
like when he snaps at Henry in the board meeting, it's like And obviously Ferdinand replies like running isn't an option, and like that's very pointed.
Scary.
And then there's the garage scene in New York. And my first thought when that scene ends and like they're doing this kind of pull out on him is just like, remember when this show was like the biggest thing here was whether Harper would get a flat or whether like Yasmin's boyfriend's fail boyfriend agent thing that would work. I was like, this show has like just evolved so much. Let's talk about the garage scene, the scariest part of this episode. We didn't talk about this in episode 4 because one, we didn't have much time, and I also just thought if the show wants to reveal it to us, I'll talk about it then. But I did have the idea of like, is this guy this third person at Rishi's flat nefarious? Is he the one that planted the bad coke, right? But I was like, we don't have time. We'll talk about it later. And like the show kind of like shows us that like, but again, it's like we realize how much Whitney doesn't know.
Doesn't know exactly.
We talked about
For
it
as
last
much
week about
for
the
as
cabal.
in control as he is, it is this like, forgive the pun, like Russian nesting doll situation of layers of control, right? So yeah, I think it was. I need to go through and rewatch this scene in Rishi's flat. I'm trying to figure out because they very intentionally in the framing when that the third party guy. And he feels like a long lost brother of like Liam and Noel Gallagher, so let's just call him Mr. Gallagher. When Mr. Gallagher
That's really good.
leaves, I think it's just like the fully like zipped track jacket. Anyway, when he drops off the coke, they do focus in on it, but I having a little bit of difficulty even still when I went back through and watched it for that fourth episode, and I said not to address it, but it's hard for me to tell whether or not Rishi had any of that, or if Rishi was using his own supply, because it looks like at one point Rishi's having some of it. But yes, I do. Obviously, with what we know now, the implication is very clearly like we had Diker killed because he was getting too close to what was happening.
Even in that scene, there's a sequence where, not to go back 4 episodes, where Rishi obviously fades away and Diker is still doing the coke. So like, if anything, Diker
might
just
be
did
like a
lot
volume thing.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, it was quite like him increasing the volume, him saying this one's on me. It was the odds were that like he was involved. I figured we'll talk about it if the show ever decided to show us, and they did.
I didn't think he tried to run in this episode.
Sorry?
Or I didn't think he tried to run in this episode, which is obviously what led to the garage scene. I just didn't think he would try and run in this episode.
I mean,
like
they
this
do a pretty good job
close
of planting that it's coming sooner rather than later, right?
Yeah.
Like he pulls out the passwords in 6, and I think it's like certainly considering that. So I think we're meant to interpret that as like it is coming sooner than later. But yeah, I mean, I think why not? If I'm already overseas, why not use that as an excuse to kind of go ahead and head out while I'm there? But yeah, I mean, I think that is everybody again is like levels of trapped and trying to figure out their escape.
You're right.
And how, and really, I think a lot of people have kind of felt that this whole season is that one's of this idea of like escaping and how do you get out of like prisons that you've made for yourself? This is a situation where it's like
Henry's such a bitch. Like he came out, he saw them like dragging his
and
captain.
he called him.
And he was like, to call him? What are you doing?
Like, what do you think was going to happen? And he's like, why didn't you answer your phone? Because the guy had me by the neck. What's wrong?
What are you doing?
But I think it just goes to show like how in deep Whitney is in the situation and how far like, again, just like this Russian nesting doll structure of just like who is really in control at any given moment and how scary that can be. I think if you're Henry, you look at it as like Whitney is this puppet master that's pulling all the strings, but then you look at that as like, no, it's actually this other person. And so there's just like layers upon layers upon layers of like what exactly is happening.
Oblivious.
And honestly, it's kind of a nice like inverse of what's happening when inside like the governmental side of things, where it's like, who's actually in control of that situation. Like, Dern feels like she's in a position where, she can maybe get out scot-free, but then it's like all these other external factors coming into play. The PM, somebody wants to take a fall, so now so there's like, again, all these like structures of hierarchy and red tape that you're unaware of that are coming, these top-down decisions that are coming down and then influencing everybody else down at the bottom, like, it does not feel coincidental to me that is mirrored in whatever this, like, mob morass is that we see with Ferdinand, but then also communicated from this other angle of, like, this governmental side. One's done in the dark, shadowy, kind of cabal-y, clandestine parking lot. The other is done in a, mahogany cabinets in number 10, right? So it's like,
White
I
Hall.
think those two systems are very intended to be sort of compared and contrasted in that way.
So
Frankie,
I
you called
think
this the. Sorry, go ahead.
no, what are you gonna say? I call this the.
You called this the scariest part of the episode. Which part scared you?
Well, I mean, a guy grabbing Whitney by the neck and taking him to an underground garage. But
Should
it
I tell
follows
you
your
what I found the scariest part in this episode?
yes.
Ferdinand is so scary. And he
Mhm.
says, while Tender still has a pulse, it remains a useful ... data set. I don't think, like reading those words, I don't think anyone could deliver them and make me scared, but boy, was I frightened. I
But
was
okay, I
afraid.
mean, it goes to your point last week of like the show introducing a new feeling, right? A new emotion, which was dread. And so I do think I agree with you guys that like Henry was trying to escape in New York. But I'm just gonna throw this out there and we can discuss if we want. But like, is there a version where this was his plan? Like
Whitney,
try to escape in New York. Sorry, not Henry, sorry, Whitney.
yeah,
Try to escape in New York, let them quote unquote catch me, throw them off my scent so that I can escape when we get back to
that's
London.
exactly what I thought about at the end of the episode. That was my exact read. That he knew.
Yeah. Because like again, it's like it goes back to my point of Whitney not being in control of his emotion because we know him to be so maybe again that's just an act.
Table setting. Yeah.
Right. Because
Especially
every
when
time he
you.
loses emotions,
Yeah.
Ferdinand is there. The boardroom, the car.
Yeah.
It's like to let Ferdinand know, okay, this guy's I don't know. But it's just something to
I think I agree with that, and I felt the same thing, especially when you line it up to the rest of the lies that he was telling in front of Ferdinand this episode.
no peer point stuff.
There's no peer point. Like there's nothing to try and buy peer point, and there's no reason for him to try and go to New York if that isn't happening. So yeah, I agree. I think
Yeah.
I
No,
mean, yeah.
I really like that. I mean, yeah, I think that feels pretty spot on.
Yeah.
think.
I don't know if there's anything else we'll talk about with Ferdinand, is there? I know.
no.
So we can just and then obviously the episode ends with Henry realizing that everybody
gone.
has left him.
It's gone.
It's like
It's a lot.
okay, should we go to Yasmin and start with the Jenny? Let's start with the Jenny Dern section. This isn't my favorite part of the episode, but it's not my favorite part of the episode. I really did like Lisa Dern finally getting like. First of all, she's such a real one. Like she's
So
always
good.
like she's gonna stay on business.
Talking about the most sort of like morally uncompromised characters, she is probably literally like truly the only one that has like stood her ground on her convictions insofar as she's capable of doing.
Yeah.
I think now multiple times we've seen that she has been stymied by institutional factors far beyond her control, but like she's been a real one from day one as far as being like, you, Henry Muck, are a shithead, and it's
You're a
only going
piece
to be
of
a matter of
shit.
time until I expose you for who you are to the entire world. So, like, she's been about that action from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And on that, she's also still like a good person because she could have thrown Jenny under the bus in that first scene where it's just her, Jenny, and Ricky Martin. But she's like, yo, this stuff is coming for you. Like, look, I'm not the one that was taking dinners at their house. I'm not the one that has Yasmin on speed dial. If
Mhm.
anything
But
comes
do
out
you
as
think
you,
part of that is hubris, where she doesn't think that
it
Jenny
is
has the
100%
spine
hubris.
to
And
do this?
I think it's also a bit of like self-righteousness. Like I've been doing the
Yes.
right thing all this time, so the world is going to reward me for being right.
100%.
Do
I'm
you
being
also think it's
good.
also a stupidity in believing in this institution? Which is, I guess, what you're saying. That she believes that, like,
Yeah.
she said, when it comes down to it, your answers are more damning than mine.
Yeah,
'Cause she thinks it's going to
exactly.
come
She
down
thinks
to
there's
like
yeah,
an open debate.
yeah.
It's not. It's not going to be an open debate. Anyone who likes Chloe Perry's work on this show, please go watch Department Q. She was really good on that.
Oh, I didn't know
yeah,
she was in that. I've had the
yeah,
first episode on my Netflix for a while. Oh, okay.
yeah.
I'll go
I
watch it.
really, I mean, it's made for me, but I really did like Department Q. Yeah.
One thing. First, is this the first time that they showed just the politicians doing politics?
Yeah. we've never seen an exterior of 10 number 10. I was
Look,
like, oh,
as
we are
soon
just
as
in
I
a
saw
different
that shot,
space.
I was like, oh, this is a BBC show now. Like,
Yes.
I
this
mean,
is
we've
now
seen
a
it
British show.
in fifth, like when they were having the meeting, when Tender's there to have the meeting sort of with Dern
Yeah,
and
with
Ricky
other
comes in, but
people,
like,
Yeah,
right?
but like,
But
yeah,
this one
Tender
is
is there.
but it's, well, I mean, we had this stuff in season 3 with in season 2 with, with Gus and kind of the things as it relates to those sides of things, but like,
yeah.
to
But I
your
feel like
point,
they were all main characters. Like even in season 3, where they're cheersing after the deposition or
right,
Yeah,
the
Robert
right.
is
cabinet.
there.
Yeah, Robert is there, and Henry, who I consider
Like
a main
that
at this
scene has
point.
maybe like 7th and 8th build, if that. Like
Yeah,
none
and I
of like our
was.
top 6 or 7. Yeah, it was like it was again. It's the evolution of the show. Is the show kind of
That's
growing?
exactly
I
what I
did
was thinking. And
yeah,
honestly, if this is what they want to do next, sign me up. I'm
just
there. I'm there. They're talking about
um.
sandcastle majorities. I'm there.
I want to talk about Norton a lot actually. Let's start with the Yasmin Norton scene at home. Um, when Yasmin is like, "It's good for the family," and Norton's like, "Yes, you keep saying that. Like you keep mentioning the family's role here." I thought it was, and goes to William's earlier point of like Yasmin pushing. I thought it was interesting. Like Yasmin could have stopped at several points, but she kept. She wants Norton to know how kind of how bad things are, or let him believe things are really, really, really bad.
Exactly.
Like
None of
she
what she
said,
says is incorrect, though. Like,
it's not.
I
It's
do
not.
think she is pulling up the amount of like heroin usage that Henry is doing at any given point in time, but like that is certainly a part of his behavior, right?
Mhm.
And that has been a consistent through line from him from season 3 through to now. Like there is 100% she is like playing that up to get Norton on her side, but
Mhm.
she's embellishing details, but none of the details are incorrect or false.
No, 100%. Yeah, she's not
Yeah.
lying. She's
She's
just
turning
like,
up the volume a little bit, but
Yep.
yeah,
the
and like
music is
she,
playing.
yeah, she watches. She's like, okay, I've said drink. Let me just add that. Not sure about the rest.
Cocaine.
And then he takes that bit. She's like, I know he's used heroin. He takes that bit and she's like, often. And like, it's just like she
No,
keeps on.
no, because she says often.
Oh my god, yeah, we might have this because I have a point on this. I have
She says
I thought
often,
this might
Norton
be your
says
point.
often, and she says often is sort of like a like we have now double verified this. Like
She-
it has two sources, right? If we're talking about
Yes,
journalism
two
comes up a
factors.
lot in this, like it's like she has multiple sources. Sources are saying Henry has used heroin.
sources are saying.
I am
yeah,
sources, but I have said it twice.
yeah. Do we have the same point on?
I
on
think we
this
might
then?
have the same point on this
Okay,
because
I'm
it goes
gonna go
back to
to-
what you were saying.
I'm going to go to acting nerd corner in a second. I don't know if it's acting or directing. We're going to go to nerd corner, Sha. So I was very intrigued by this exchange because what actually happens is she says often, Norton says often,
Often.
and she says often. So obviously I do some research, and anyone who knows a bit more about this, please let me know. And I'm ashamed to tell you guys how much time I spent on these 3 words doing research for these notes. But what it looks like is that the pronunciation of that word with the T is loudly regarded as the northern pronunciation, which for anyone who spends a little bit of time in the UK knows that means not posh, like
Yeah.
historically not posh pronunciation, right? So we are actually seeing in real time Yasmin's attempt at assimilating,
Exactly.
right, via received pronunciation. Like she says her natural thing with, and it's again, she's rich, like, but she's just not posh. Like again, they're two very
She's
different
She's not
things.
landed gentry. Like
Yes.
she's not.
It's the
yeah.
difference between new money and old money. Like I think let's just
Exactly.
like
Very
codify
old
it
money.
in that way. I think is helpful.
So she says often, which is personally growing up, I was taught to say often. I didn't actually know people said often, right?
Yeah.
But like she says often, which is her natural thing, and then Norton says often, which is his own natural way of saying. And then again, she's like, I forgot the world I'm in. Like she's like, yes,
And also, I
often.
want you to hear this
Mm.
often.
Often. So I don't know if it was a writing choice, a directing choice, an acting choice. Maybe William, if you speak to me, can come and you can ask them. But like whoever made that choice.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to. I'm not going to have an opportunity to speak to them this year. I'm pretty disappointed, but they are quite busy. So yeah, which is weird because this will be the first time that I've not spoken to them for a season. You know, I was fortunate enough to talk to them twice for season 2, once for the season 3 finale, and then they're in a position right now where they have no availability to make that happen.
Well, I mean, I guess if we're on that point, we can let anyone else. People have been asking us. We are not speaking with them either this season. They've been very, very busy, as William has just said.
Yeah.
So yeah, it breaks the streak. But yeah, no, the point is that I just was very intrigued by that. I spent way too much time researching the pronunciation
That's
of
not the first
Offord.
time, though. There have been other instances of her, I think, throughout the show. I think the way in which Marisa has keyed into that is to play up that difference. Like they are. Everybody involved, I think, is very knowing of that and how those little teeny tiny things translate. I think it's sometimes those things, I think, can get a little lost in translation for American audiences. So I'm glad that you're flagging it. Is understanding, I think, kind of those class differences. I think there are moments in which I can sort of appreciate it broadly. Candidly, that is not something I had caught on to that minutia of the difference there. But the show does a good job, I think, of highlighting the disparity between those two things and what it means, and especially for, you know, how someone like Harper navigates that world versus someone like Yasmin. If you're supposed to look at it on a scale, which this ties into the YasHarper scene at the end, but like Harper is like very keenly aware of sort of the inherent privilege that Yasmin already has just by the nature of being a part of Hanani Publishing, right? But at the same time, she, even herself, Yasmin, has a ceiling on how far she can go because she is a part of this world, but she is not of this world. And so I think those little teeny tiny things do a good job, I think, of highlighting those factors.
Let's go to the aptly named or hilarious name, whichever one you want to pick, Norton News and General Trust, the Red Top tabloid. I mentioned how I thought this episode was the best directed Mickey and Karen have done, and one of the instances is here in this scene. Because I want to talk about Norton. I really want to talk about Norton because I'm very intrigued by Norton in this episode. When Jenny comes, first of all, I think the framing of that scene is very important and very interesting because Norton is with Kevin and Yasmin on one side, and then he moves. That's not a mistake. Like, it's easier to shoot the scene with all of them on that one side, but like he moves behind Jenny. So now he's opposite Kevin and Yasmin.
But
Now, the question is
also
how
watching it unfold in a way that he's not really involved, where I think
he's
if
the
he
puppet
was
master.
there,
I think that's the thing, is like this episode is always about who really has the power in this given circumstance, right? Is it Ferdinand? Is it Prime Minister? Like, it is another exemplification of that. It's like, if you look at it, who's really dictating all of this is Norton. He's the one who's
a very interesting read.
He's literally behind the scenes. He's behind her. He's behind all of them, looking at what's happening. Like that, it's all. This episode is really looking at who wields the power. Who are these authority figures that are actually the true decision makers? Same thing. Like, even down to like Wilhelmina, which, like, by the way, I love that Pierpoint is this cockroach that just like
we did talk about Wilhelmina. Yeah,
will never die.
Ways to survive.
Like, gonna bite
moving from one big company to the other, just being bought.
But that's the understanding of these like institutional situations that have all of this generational power, is that it's like they can find ways to sort of bend and shape the world to their own needs, whether that's Pierpoint, whether that's the Norton Group, whether that's the British government, whether that's the, again, like whatever clandestine situation that Ferdinand is a part of,
the cabal.
Like this like shadowy cabal. Like, these things are bigger than everybody that's involved, and at some point you're going to feel the oppression of these forces on you, and what that does. Even if Norton's not necessarily, he's not as powerful as a prime minister, but in some ways he is, right? Like, he's able to sort of like fully dictate how this story is wrapped up and presented and told.
Honestly, I think even Kevin is more powerful than the prime minister.
That prime minister,
100%. But still, at the end of the day, Norton is the one telling Kevin what to do. You know what I mean? Like, there's some level of Kevin kind of coming to that understanding of like how they should approach things, and it's a group decision. But Norton is still putting that pressure on there. So yeah, it's 100%. It's a great framing choice, but he is literally the one that's like watching from behind the scenes that is now going to sort of influence everything that comes forward.
That's a great point, because I didn't think about that. So that's a great point. Because let's talk about Norton. is not, because he's clearly hesitant to do this. Like
He's
he outright says
scared.
it.
He's
Is that
scared.
just because he's afraid of Henry? Is afraid of what happened to Henry? Because before you answer here, because like even with Jenny, like he says, thank you for your principles or something. Like he pauses and then says dot 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 and principles, I think is the word he uses. Um and he's like, where is he's behind the scenes and he's doing some great acting in soft focus. But like when Jenny's like, what would you want? His face almost like lifts up in disappointment. Like he's
Mm.
like, oh, I wish you were not gonna I wish you didn't agree to this. Obviously she changes her mind later. Um
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking he's a little bit disappointed with Jenny, but also, and I think crucially, he sees Yasmin in a new light. Like he's kind of afraid of her. Maybe not afraid because this is a man with all the power. Like William has
yeah.
said, he has all the power in this situation. But I think he's actually he's like, hey, don't be so excited at the thought of taking down this company and maybe
I think
destroying
he's
people's
sad that
careers.
she's picking this over the family. I think she would have hoped that she would pick family first. That's what he hoped, I guess.
No, I think interesting, but because I read that as this is her picking the family, maybe not Henry, but the
But Henry's
family.
the family though.
Well, is he?
It's not. It's 100% self-preservation, which is what everybody in this episode is doing to some extent. I think the ways in which people again are dressing this up and convincing themselves that it is other things for their own red line morality or whatever it
Mhm.
is, whatever story that they need to tell themselves to justify their actions is what it is. But this is 100% an act of self-preservation. This
Yeah.
is again,
I
this is
think,
Yasmin finally carving out a place for herself in this world.
yeah, but I think it is. I think those two things are joined up in this instance, right?
Sure,
Because
they're
I
not
think
mutually exclusive, but I think it is more selfish than it appears. Is my read.
like altruistic, yeah. Because when she says in the conversation with Alexander earlier, when she says the family, this is best for the family.
Yeah.
Like that rang in my head as the institution must not suffer.
Would
I was about to
suffer,
say,
and
I was
they're
like, which we also hear from Wilhelmina again. It's like,
Women,
yeah.
so
But
the
like
institution
it
doesn't
is-
suffer. Like,
It is selfish because the institution is what is going to give them their ability to survive.
Yep.
In that sense, but I still think, like Wilhelmina, she went and got the best deal for Pierpoint,
Mhm.
Yep.
and I think Yasmin is doing this in order to get the best deal for the Norton family, because if she can get out in time, maybe they don't lose everything.
yeah,
And maybe she can still, like, oh, this was mainly Henry. I was just an employee, one
But-
of the two.
But okay, maybe this is, but like based on the kind of institution we're in, like Henry's more of the family than Yasmin. Like Yasmin gets in, like, because everyone keeps on telling her about how bad this is going to be for Tender, i.e. Mock. Like she gets it
Yeah.
like 3 different times in this episode. And you know
But
what
I
this
think
means,
Norton
right?
is the family.
but that's the thing.
More
It's
than
like
Henry.
he
But would this
at the
affect him?
end at the end
No.
of season 3, Norton says like he makes the line, or he talks to Yasmin basically like what is best for family.
Mhm.
Like that is very specifically like the way in which I think he sort of appeals to her better angels about like moving forward with trying
Yeah.
to, I think, marry Henry. Is
Reconcile
this
with Henry.
notion? He's basically, I can't remember the exact bit of dialogue, but he was like, if you're family, I can protect you, because that's the
Yes.
whole
I used
deal.
all my power to protect my family,
Exactly.
and I don't
So-
have a small amount, something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So like I think she, in the same way that he appealed to her, is sort of like, I can make the situation with your dad go away if you're part of family. She is now doing the reverse, where it's like Henry is kind of the distressed asset in the same way that
Exactly.
she was. And so now she's appealing to his sense of family, quote unquote, as a way to kind of like preserve this. So yeah, it is a larger institution, whether or not you want to view that as Muck, Norton, whatever. Let's just call it family for the sake of a nice,
Mhm.
tidy package. But like, it is appealing to, we are going to save again this like larger institutional body for the, again, I'm driving this as like an inherently selfish thing, but it is also beneficial for you
For
as part
you.
of this
Exactly.
larger institutional situation. Like that is really the dynamics that are at play here.
Yeah, and all that, everything aside, the phone call is just incredible from all of them. Everybody's
Oh.
clearly distraught. Yeah, Yasmin is Marissa again, just good, very good performance.
Well,
Like
I mean, right now.
big, big. Just give me. I don't think I'd ever noticed kind of like it's just she's doing a lot of eye acting. Like the camera is really staying on her face. This especially in that scene, like you can just see her big eyes just welling up. It was just like
Even in the
no matter
scene with Norton, when like in the earlier one with Norton, when he asks her, like essentially how's your marriage? And
how's
she
the
says,
marriage.
you know how you've seen my marriage, Alexander. Like
Yeah,
her eyes in that scene, they soften up in a way that they weren't because she had been talking to Jenny
yeah,
before that. So
and
yeah.
yeah, and it's like no matter what you want to say about Yasmin or even Norton, whatever, like you can tell that this is something that like it's not as if that call ends and then Yasmin says, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good act," and goes away. Like she's clearly shaken and clearly distraught. So it was just kind of like you can see how it's affecting all of them. You spoke about Jenny. She calls Jenny after everything has happened. First of all, great line from Lisa Dern, "You Tory." It was just like, thank you. Just like,
Sorry.
great to see you flourish, you Tory. Yeah, so she calls Jenny to kind of like, I was like, Yasmin, calm down. Like you're too thirsty. You can't just be
Bro,
her
is
marketing
she
manager like
crazy?
2 seconds.
She's insane for thinking Jenny
Um,
Bevan will want her and her communications team, like running her comms.
the real cancer in our politics are the pig shit, thick lightweights without a single real belief except for their own advancement. And I was thinking about this before she said, because like, Yasmin, like, I couldn't tell you what Yasmin would vote for. Obviously, she doesn't vote,
She
she
doesn't
told us
vote
she
now.
vote too. But it's like, I was like, and what does Yasmin believe in? This was before Jenny even said, it's like, I could tell you like Harper's kind of like ideology, even Eric, whatever. I was like, what does Yasmin believe in? And obviously Jenny says it outright. It's like, yeah, you just want self-advancement. And again, as she mentions it, all of that comes from her father, obviously. Um, but yeah, she then says this is a marriage of convenience. But I'm supposed you are used to that. Do you know what happens after that year? When
What?
it cuts to Yasmin, the
What?
promise comes back on, which is the
Ah,
song from earlier. But then the scene transitions to a Harper scene, which could mean nothing. And then the song continues playing up to the bar where now it starts playing diegetically. Should we talk about Yasmin and Harper finally?
let's do
So
YasHarper.
I want to use this as a point. I brought this up in my recap and got a little bit of pushback. My recap for episode 5 and got a little bit of pushback from it. It's been very interesting to me to see people's reactions of what they think the show is about now. And Becca, you and I have texted a little bit about this. I think the show breaching critical mass in a lot of ways, in the same way that, you know, Marty Supreme hit digital this week and a lot of people watched it and just had a lot of really dumbass takes about it.
Fuck.
I think industry reaching a new level of audience has just made people who are like, I've long believed that there needs to be you must be this tall to discourse.
Oh my God. I'm so happy I'm not the one
Where-
saying this. Like, go off. It's just not me being
which
the
is
asshole.
but that's the thing. It's like there are candidly like I to be honest with you, I am really struggling with because I'm in the midst of writing it right now. Like the episode 6 recap, I don't think is my best work because that episode was just like so dense, and trying to parse it all and all the interpersonal dynamics that are happening in there, specifically the stuff with Whitney and Henry, I think is just like so layered and so dense. And I think even if I watched that episode 10 times, I don't think I could fully understand all of what is happening in that particular moment. But
I don't envy you.
I fully understand that this show is now a 2 lead show. It started out as Harper. She is still our primary point of view character in a lot of ways, but this show is now fully an ensemble show, and really at the end of the day it is now a two-hander. It is absolutely both on parallel tracks, Yasmin and Harper's story, to the point where they literally break it out like Team Edward and Team what I can't remember right now because I only read Twilight. Yes, thank you. I was like, I can't say I'm a huge Twilight person. But there are these there's this dividing line where both of our leads are on two different sides. And so it's like, I think the biggest thing, it's been very interesting, I think, to see people, I think, rub up against what they think the show is versus what the show or should be versus what the show is telling you that it is. And I don't want to go so far as to say, like, I think some of the like YasHarper stuff has been a little overblown by people who like want to ship two characters. I do think their relationship is very fundamental to the show and how the show has especially evolved and progressed over the last couple of years, how in which these two characters are always constantly drawn back to each other, despite the fact that they argue, they fight, but at the end of the day, in the same way that I feel like Eric and Harper really understand each other,
Mhm.
Yasmin and Harper also tremendously understand one another, to the point where it is, I posted this screenshot on Twitter, I think, when the final trailer came out. And I say this because I spoke to him about this, but like, I don't want to go so far as to say the entirety of industry could be boiled down to heat, but at the same time, Mickey and Conrad really understand what makes that movie work, and which is part of the reason why I wanted to talk to him about that piece, is because so much of the specificity of Michael Mann's Heat, how those characters interact, what they're good at, what they do, how those things rub up against each other, it is the source material in a lot of ways with a lot of other things because they draw from a lot of different places. But I think if you were to purely distill a lot of industry's influences down into one single source, it could be heat. And
Hmm.
so I think, to me, that scene at the bar is the equivalent of the diner scene in Heat. It's two people who have been on sort of opposing sides all season long, coming together and sort of reflecting about the ways in which they're different, in which they're similar, before then they go off and kind of consummate it in this weird way, right? In the same way that I think at the very end of Heat, you have this moment where these two people who are on opposing sides of things finally have a moment of understanding of one another in this larger euphoria of like death. What is more euphoric than dancing on club drugs in the middle of a club? Nothing. Like, they're having this euphoric level of understanding that comes as like, I don't want to go so far as to say like ego death, because we don't see that happening, right? But like, there's an understanding that like no matter what happens from this point forward for the two of them, they always have this moment to come back to. And to me, that whole extended sequence, YasHarper sequence, is the
Huh.
show in a perfect like distillation of what it is, or at least what the show is now, to the point where they're even having a conversation where it's like, look at how far we've come.
Mm.
Huh.
That is a micro statement of the show's larger macro thesis about how
Yep.
far we have come, and the ways in which Mickey and Conrad, I think, have moved and shaped those characters, these two characters, through that. There's just a lot of, I don't want to go so far as to say that like the YasHarper relationship is Mickey and Conrad's relationship, but I assume there's some level of sort of like self-insert that is happening there. And the ways in which those two characters rub up against each other and how they're different from one another and how they're similar is the core of the show in so many ways. So like, I'm sorry for the extended reign here, but like, it is a, I think it's a perfect understanding. I'll be very interested to see how people view that scene who
Same.
believe that the show is always supposed to be Harper's show and haven't necessarily grown out of that mindset of understanding that like television as a medium, or storytelling of television, you have to be able to sort of grow and evolve and change while also kind of staying static at the same time. And the ways in which I think the show has kind of ebbed and flowed is to kind of like put Yasmin and Harper in sort of opposite ends of the spectrum, see how far we can push them, and then see how we can kind of bring them back together. And that, again, that cascading effect of that way. And so I think it's a beautiful piece of writing. Macaulay, to your point, I think is like wonderfully directed. I think it's like one of my favorite sequences that
Oh,
Mickey and Conrad have
don't
directed.
get
Like
me started.
the whole thing, like the fact that they are sort of shrouded in this like red and blue, these sort of like similar but like opposing, contrasting lights around them, is like this sea of darkness.
Thronging.
And then even too, like this moment where it's like the framing of that, where it's like Yasmin starts this episode sort of on top of someone else, and then that's the way it also closes, is now the two of these people sort of conjoined together
Mm.
to go from that with the Daft Punk song playing. It's like,
Mhm.
it is a very like great bookend to how that is done, and the symbolism of that I think is like extraordinarily well executed. But like, it is like a pretty masterful sequence from start to finish, and what they say to each other versus what they don't say to each other, the implied sort of like weight of history that sits there, the notion that like, yeah, Harper, I think, has always really kind of taken care of Yasmin, and now it's kind of her turn. What exactly does that even mean for Harper? Like,
Exactly.
it's a very rich text. I think you could watch that sequence 10 times and probably not even pick up on all of the subtext that's happening there.
See, here's the thing. We could have done an episode just on this YasHarper section. Like,
Yeah.
honestly. But let me run through some things that happened in that bar quickly before we get into the club scene. Because there are 3 songs that I played at that bar.
Yep.
As I've just mentioned, The Promise carries over from the end of the Yasmin Jenny call through stench. One of my best scenes. Loved Kwabena and Supi, Happy for Money. Loved them.
Yeah.
And then it goes into the bar scene. The last song that plays is the Veritas score song that takes them into the club scene. The middle song is Enya's Only Time.
Mhm.
Now, here are 2 quotes from Enya about this song. I had to stop putting pressure on myself because of relationships coming and going. But if relationships aren't working, that means they are not right. That's what the single Only Time is about. Then later, some years, maybe a year later, Only Time becomes like this big, apparently, anthem for 9/11. Like, people are like singing the song and using the song on like 9/11 memorials and things like that. And she says, Only Time talks about the fact that time will heal. It won't get rid of the wound, but time will bring back a sense of normality that is important to your life. Like, to think that this song is playing in this scene with Yasmin and Harper that is about relationships coming and going, the ephemeral nature of relationships, also like that time heals wounds, like the things that these characters have been through, like time will heal it. And it's funny, on my notes for the club scene, I have, to William's point out, that they're on all the drugs, and I also have the word euphoric. So William, I guess we're thinking along the same lines. Let me go through the bad first, at least bad for me. This is the thing that really kind of I had to grapple with throughout this week after watching the episode for the first time. Because I am pretty anti YasHarper as a ship. You're pro A or you're anti?
I'm anti. I'm
Oh,
anti
okay.
too.
So,
And
was this
honestly, I think it's because of the discourse, TM, that made me
maybe,
anti.
probably, but like, it's funny, I don't think we mentioned the things that you said you didn't like about this episode in our discussion.
No,
Like,
we
so,
haven't. We haven't. And
oh, okay,
I can talk about it a bit later, but it wasn't anything about this. This is actually what brought me back, right?
fair.
I think they
So,
kind of lost me around the political intrigue
okay. So,
when it
like the Lisa
becomes a bit
Dern
of a
stuff.
BBC show.
Okay, you mentioned that. Okay. So, for me, like, there are 3 relationships on TV that I'm very anti people shipping. YasHarper, and I don't know if we're going to lose viewers or whatever. YasHarper, Sid Kami,
Oh,
and Deborah and Ava on Hacks. I don't like the idea, and like to William's point about, and look, I think we've spoken to Mickey and Conrad twice. You and I, William has spoken to them a number of times. Like, I've randomly DM'd them. I know that they didn't do this. Like, oh, the TikTok edits will
it's no fan
go crazy,
service.
right? They didn't do that. But it's funny because like Ebuka, who is also on this podcast team and everything, what loves industry as well, he hates is a strong word, but he's been very anti the idea that like the central relationship is Yasmin and Harper. He's always on the side of like it's Eric and Harper. Obviously, that's changed now with Eric probably leaving the show. Like, that was the relationship like he kind of gravitates to, the Eric and Harper's relationship. But I don't like the idea that when 2 people share this kind of like extreme emotions and like all of these things, that it always has to come down to a romantic relationship. Like, I think to me, it's a lot more interesting if like Sid and Kami, Eva and Deborah, Yasmin and Harper are doing all these things for like more human reasons as opposed to
Let
just
niggas
love.
be friends.
Yes, let them be friends, let them be enemies, let them be jealous, let them be vindictive. It doesn't have to be, oh, they love each other, that's why they're doing these things. And like, so I've always just been really anti the YasHarper thing as a couple, 100%. And like William's point, I'm not going to go into about like the Yasmin, but I do think it's funny. You guys are saying that you don't know how people react. I do think like the Venn diagram of Yasmin stands and Harper stands, love YasHarper. That is
That's
like,
fair.
like,
That's
so
actually fair.
I think this would be a smash hit. I'm very surprised you guys are surprised about that.
I think maybe okay. I actually can't say my real thoughts. I can't.
So
I'm sorry.
I want to
Say
read
your
this quote
thoughts.
from Mahala because I asked her for Men's Health about specifically the end of season 3, the phone call she has with Yasmin about the wedding, where it's like after everything they went through, like why would this be this reconciliation? And she said the phone call for both of them is confirmation that there's nothing the two of them could say or do or go through together that would dissolve their bond. They're both fucked up and they see each other as deeply fucked. There's comfort in knowing that there is someone else in the world who knows who gets you. They've been through a singular thing that only the two of them experienced. They can only relate to each other on it, and the fallout is completely unique to them. So that's, I mean, I think that is I do think that has kind of become the core of the show in a lot of ways. I think that there is I think the value of YasHarper is highlighting that core relationship versus something that is more romantic. It is an understanding of
Wait, sorry. When you say value of YasHarper, do you mean on the show
The
or do you mean
shippers.
on the internet? The shippers.
in the show. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
not talking
okay.
about internet. I don't. I with all due respect, like, and there are a lot of people who I've had interactions with, but like to me, that is something that people are projecting on the show versus what the show is actually doing. And I would rather to try and actually like
But can you say that now that
sit.
it's text? Like they kissed in this episode.
Yeah, but is it?
But it's not. It's
Is
coming
it?
from a place of sort of the understanding that you get when someone else knows you. I look at
Exactly.
that. I look at that as not a like, oh, now that they're gonna hook
Now
up.
they're
It
gonna
is this
exactly.
it's this like in the same way that like when you have.
It's like if me and you kiss Banky.
Again.
I mean, kind of like there is, I think, a deep abiding love you can have for someone who is your friend, where maybe that is not. I don't see it as romantic per se. I see it as this kind of like true understanding of who this other person is and
Like
a
if somebody
true love of who
wept in
this
your
other person
arms,
is.
I think it's
Yeah,
the
like
same level of intimacy there of that kiss. That is
it's
how I read it.
100%. It's more intimate than it is romantic, right?
Yeah.
It's an understanding of like who we are to one another, what we've been through, what that means for us. Like, and granted, also they're on drugs, but like I think
Oh,
it's
the
one of those
drugs.
things where it's
And
like
that
it just
makes you do stuff.
it heightens the euphoria of this like deeply emotional connection that they have for one another. Where really at the end of the day, like. And I don't mean this to be viewed in like a sexual manner, but like they are the only people that sort of know how to please one another. And like again, like I want to be very clear, like a non-sexual connotation. Like there's a level of understanding that only the two of them have that is sort of like personified in this particular moment.
Yeah.
I don't. I think shipping stuff in general is something that I've always been just like very wary of. There was like a huge contingent of people on Smallville. Like you want to talk about like coming up in like TV fandom minds, like the whole like Clois Smallville stuff is like, whereas
I
like
didn't even see
it's
that because I wasn't on the internet then.
it's literally it's like all this. But all these fans who like wanted Clark Kent and this like other character who's not Lois Lane to get together, I was like, that's not what the story is. Like with all due respect, they've now introduced Lois Lane into the show.
Yeah.
Like that is Clark's like that is and
Lana.
yeah, not even Lana, but it was just like it was literally it's like when Lois Lane entered the show, it was like okay, whatever sort of like shipping end game you have no longer exists because Lois Lane is a
because
part of the
this is
show.
the end
That
game. Yeah,
is
fair.
the dynamic of the show. I understand people wanting to have sort of romantic partners, but I also think that like that's not what the show is. And so I think you have to engage with it for what it is. And I think there's something, I guess, kind of nice about Mick and Conrad potentially throwing them a bone, but I don't view it as a confirmation of this like unrequited love. It comes from a place again of like they're the only two people who now understand each other. They have nothing. I don't want to go so far as to say that they have nothing left, but like look at what's happened. Yasmin really truly I think has nothing left. Harper has no relationship with her brother. Her mother is dead. For all intents and purposes, her father figure is also
Eric is dead.
He's not dead, but he's sure shit dead to her.
Yeah.
And so like all she has is to live in the success of her victory, and like money can tame the beast to a certain extent, but that doesn't necessarily bring her happiness. And so the only happiness that they can have exists in this moment where the two of them are together. And I think that is
with
almost
someone
like
that can see you.
Yeah, it's truly is. It's like it's an understanding of each other, and that's like beautiful. But it's also sad that the two of them only have this. And so that's the thing is like Yasmin says she's like, "You're lonely," and Harper's like, "Always." They're
Always. Yeah.
both lonely, and the only way that they're not
On
lonely is when they're together.
on that, right? Like I want to talk about their arc because I think everything that we said, like their whole arc in this show is sort of exemplified in this episode, right? I think
100%.
there's a micro amount of it in this episode, right? So
Go
starting
on.
from that first scene, right, where she says, "Oh, where's everybody? It's just me today. Lonely, always." I think that harks back to something that we spoke about earlier, where she's being honest, Harper,
Mm-hmm.
but she's not being vulnerable in that moment.
Mm.
She's being honest. Like yes, I am lonely, but she has this bravado. There's this
Yeah.
wall about it when she says it to her. And then
Yeah.
the next thing they do, I mean, there's a little Eric shouter where
Eric,
she
yeah.
was like, "Oh, I'm surprised you guys didn't kill each other." And then he's like, he exited fun, so maybe we did. But they have that conversation, right? And I think it harks back to a previous version of their relationship where they are trying to use each other, right?
She's trying to use Harper. Harper is not being.
She's trying to
Yeah.
use Harper, but
Yeah.
Harper asked
But
her, is
Harper
like,
also
"Yeah."
stated she's literally she's like,
"Stop
"What do you
fucking
want
with
me to
me.
do?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
What are you
what do you
what are
want?
you asking me to do?"
I have in
Yeah.
my notes that Harper is almost laughing at the bullshit. It's like, come on,
Yes.
Yas, just say
Yes.
what you want.
Yes. But I think that's another, like another part of the
Yeah.
of the ladder that they've gone on this whole show, where
Mhm.
they're talking to each other, they're trying to use each other, trying to get what they want from each other. And then I think it culminates at the bar, where
Mhm.
for the first time, I think they are both vulnerable and honest with each other.
Yeah,
And
it's
on the same page too,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
truly on the same page. I think there have been moments where their interests have like maybe been aligned, but like only to a certain point. And I think the
Season
second
2.
that one of them could look to sort of get ahead of something else, like we see that in season 1 with sort of Harper's decision around sort of like
Terry,
pair
oh my
points
God.
toxic culture, right? And what she decides to do or not do about that,
Yeah.
right? But this is truly the first time where they're I don't want to say that their interests have been aligned, but they're yeah, they're just aligned. They're like fully on the same page. And so that's why like
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, I'm very I like the fact maybe this is echo chamber, maybe it's confirmation bias, but like I gather the same people that have the same thoughts as me regarding this YasHarper thing. But no, it's just like everything you guys have just said is like to me the interesting thing is the relationship between this and everything they're experiencing, not romantic. I think like they don't always have to be a romantic couple. If Sid and Carmi kiss in the next season of the day, I don't know what I would do. I might burn things down.
Kiss me off.
Like
And to me, the show, any sort of central relationship like this is far more interesting to me
it is.
when it's
It
not
is
not
a romantic
romantic.
angle.
It
Yeah.
just
Like that's the whole reason why I think that I mean it's even honestly to me in a lot of ways this mimics and mirrors in some ways the Don Peggy relationship, and that relationship is so much more. I'm talking broad strokes, right?
yeah,
That
yeah.
relationship is so much more interesting to me as a like mentor-mentee relationship and what they get from one another and how they make each other better or make each other worse, or like that true moment of I see you, like you were
Mhm.
not to like reference Avatar, but you kind of mentioned this where it's like there's only one person in the world who fully understands me for who I am, and the
Yeah.
value of that is that is not something you
Yeah.
can buy.
Romantic is too easy in writing. It's like, oh, they love each other. That's why
100%.
it's just too easy. It's too easy a writing crutch for
It's
me. I
too
just like
good.
no.
Although, unfortunately, I do think what Yasmin says to Harper in the bar scene is the most romantic thing anyone has said on this show. Where she
Sure,
says,
but that
"I
doesn't
choose to
necessarily
love
mean that they're
you."
gonna go and be
Oh,
a
I choose
couple
to
now.
love
Like,
yeah.
you can tell someone that you love them, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's an
No,
element of
I don't think she
romance
meant
to
it in a
that, but,
romantic way,
like
but I'm just like, that is, I think it's such a
no, like
brilliant
but that's
line.
what
I think
makes
it's
it
so
good.
good.
That's what makes good relationship. There's some things that you say just as friends. I just like that is like the truest form of love anybody can say to
Yeah.
another person. And let's just wrap up quickly. But I want to just talk about the filmmaking in that scene because, like, for anyone who probably knows what I talk about, or even if you even saw like the short film I did, like that bar scene, that club scene. Sorry, I love when you just like throw away all reason. There is no reason why the spotlight to be on these two characters, but it looks so fucking cool, so let's do it. Like that is filmmaking to me. It's like just do what looks cool, what feels cool, what helps the story. Like don't ask questions like, oh, what would we have to do for a red light and a blue light to be like no, just enter the filmmaking where I love that. And then that final dolly shot.
Oh,
I, I don't know. Like, I was thinking that shot so many days after, like, because like it's just going at like basically ass level, and you're trying to figure out what is happening, and then it stops on them on the floor, and there's the nostalgia of that. Like, I too wish I could just like. When last did I have a club night like that? That I'm just ending on the floor,
You can't
just
do it,
sad.
I've
Banky.
never had a club night like that
You can't
before in
do
my
it.
life,
Well,
but like
personally, I'm too tall to. I'll never sit on the floor. But like, you get what I mean? Like, just like,
same,
it's like,
100%. All 6'6" of me
yeah,
trying to sit
it's
on a
just,
floor is just like
um,
not.
yeah. So, but like, just the idea, that nostalgia of like that experience, and like, what does Harper say? This is the best I've ever felt, or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like the idea that like that shot could have started on their face, but like the idea that we follow this dolly shot just on everybody's like hip level.
It's
It's
like
just
maybe
an
that's how they got there.
yeah. It's just they crawled
Yeah.
incredible. That's just an incredible idea. Yes, you're right.
It's also too, I think, leads into this idea that they're alone together and they're the
Yeah.
only two people
Yeah.
that understand each other. Like literally in a sea, both in two different instances, it's I think repeating the same thesis, which it's like out of all of these people in the world, they are the only two people that truly understand each other. Whether that's in a big sea or maybe like a more intimate moment amongst a crowd, but like it's the same sensation you get, like, being alone in a crowd. Like, that is
Yeah.
truly, like, they're alone together in those instances. So, yeah.
Um. Okay. So I agree completely with you. Ayo has to run. Ayo, do you have any odds you want to give me before for the entry finale?
No, but I had a couple sidebars before I leave.
Okay.
No more Moritz. I think I was wrong on that. But I
Yeah.
mean, we have one more
I'm.
episode, but
Yeah,
damn,
but
we were
I mean,
in
also, I
the
don't want to
Norton
jinx it.
offices,
I don't want to jinx it, but like,
but no more pregnancy either.
we're very close. We're very close. No pregnancy.
Yeah,
We're very
I think we were
close.
wrong on those. Yeah, fair.
Don't say we. Don't say we. I was very anti-pregnancy. That was your. That was all you. That was all you.
No, but you said it was coming, so yeah.
Because you convinced me. I'm sorry. Like you're just a very. You believed it. Like with
I
me.
did believe it.
I have
I
a
did
question
believe it.
for you.
Yes.
When the season ends next week and we finish the episode and we come on, will Whitney be alive? So will Henry be alive?
That's a very good question. I think it's 50-50.
That's
I
a
think
cop
it's a
out.
toss off. I think I want him to be alive,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the show is telling me he's going to die.
So many things are like this guy's dead.
Yeah.
I think it would be hilarious if we never see Whitney again. If he just pissed out and
That-
just went.
That would be a great bit. Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Just quickly. I'll just give my lines very quickly. My favorite line: "You still have your fucking nose on your face. So where's the fucking money, Henry?"
No one can put that much money into their arms.
And then Whitney says misalignment between velocity of my vision and velocity of regulation, which is why I say whenever a podcast idea doesn't work out, I'm just like, there's a misalignment between the velocity of my vision and what the audience wanted. Necessary balance with imagination, again, incredible. Inflated third-party acquisition flaws, again, incredible. Well, one of my best is just snake oil and salmon sound similar.
Yeah.
Incredible
That is a
alliteration
great-
there, by the way. But like, yeah.
That's a great line from Whitney.
And then Whitney going cool to the board members. Just like, yeah, cool,
That was-
sure, whatever.
So hard. One day the man at this table will have to blah 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 blah.
Yeah, cool.
All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Which reminded me of
yeah.
thank you, Daddy. Thank you, Mommy, from the other episode.
Thank you, Bob. William, do you have anything you want to Ayo, you can. I think William and I might just talk about TV generally for like 2 minutes, but like thank you very much. Ayo, we'll be back next week to talk about the finale, which God knows how long that's gonna be. But yeah, William, do you have any overhead lines or any lines you want to shout out?
No, I think you hit them all. I mean, the snake oil and sermon sounds. I thought that was really, really good. I mean, I think just yeah, that would be the one that I would probably pull out as my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could actually end it there, but honestly, at this point, nobody's probably listening. So, William, is there any other TV show you want to shout out? This is where like.
No,
We
I mean,
just-
honestly, like a lot of my friends have been like, "Oh, are you watching like Love Story? You know, like the new FX, like JFK Love Story, whatever." And it's like, honestly, like my world has been A Night of the Seven Kingdoms and Industry, and until those two shows are done, like that is the reality of my world. So like,
I
will get back to other things when that happens. But I mean, this is my Super Bowl. Like, this is really what
Yeah.
I'm focused on. Like, I want to give this the time and attention it deserves. The show is very meaningful for me, as I know it is for you. And so I don't want to, I don't want to ever feel like I am half-assing my
100%,
coverage
same
or
here.
my critical thinking as it relates to the show. And so that just means that I spend a lot of time thinking about this to the point where I sometimes get concerned that I'm annoying other people. But I would rather that be the case than I would rather be viewed as someone who is overly evangelical about it than someone that just
Mhm.
like does not really seem to care.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my instance. But yeah, I mean, this is
Um,
um I won't go so far as to say, I'm on my Harper, like, or her speech in episode 3,
mhm.
about being triggered, like, and I'm fucking good at it. I'm
Yeah.
okay at this, and I just want to make sure that I continue to be okay at it. So
Yeah. I have watched only one Ryan Murphy season, and I plan on keeping it at that. I enjoyed it greatly. It was the OJ season, but like,
I've heard that
I,
this is on the level of OJ. That it is like easily the best thing that he has done since then. So like
oh
I will
God,
check it out at some
you
point, but
saying
it is
that
not.
makes me. But yeah, all the other things, every other thing that he's done, I've just not. This just doesn't work for me. But if you're saying this is OJ, then I might have to go in, but not anytime soon because I just don't have the time. You're right. Okay. I mean, yeah. Unfortunately, there's nothing else I'm watching really. Seven Kingdoms is excellent, guys. If you're listening to this and you haven't, just go watch Seven Kingdoms. It's really, really good. Okay, William, thank you very much.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you very much. And oh shit, I mean, if you listen to this and somehow you don't know, last week I spoke, not last week, episode 5, I spoke with the production designer of Industry, Simon Rogers. We kind of go into the details of like creating Harper's Flat, Sweet Pea's Flat, creating Accra in Wales. So you can check that out as well as on the feed. I think that's everything. And obviously, check out William's stuff. I'll link his review of the first episode, which is free. So you can check it out and decide if you want to subscribe. Please subscribe. Thank you very much for listening, guys. William, thank you very much for coming on. And we'll be back next week for, I'm sure, a very emotional and topsy-turvy industry finale. See you next week, guys. I'm Daniel Kalia. Bye.
William, are you a big Star Wars fan?
Yeah, I mean, the Yoda stuff in particular is from my like Yoda was like really meaningful for my dad and I. And so that there have become like a couple of things in my life that have sort of become like totemic reminders of kind of him and the relationship that we had after we passed away, and Yoda is one of them. So that's why there's like a whole collection of them over there.
Oh, I was wondering why you asked that question. I just saw, okay, that's fair. It's like,
Because I look and I
Yeah.
take an interest in people back there. Yeah.
oh, good thing none of that is entering the episode. Just
And then
keep
the
on
Darth Vader head.
just being mean.
You should put it as a post-credit stinger that should live after the episode for people who truly
We'll make it
your
to the end.
your A1 day ones who listen all the way through the end of the episode.
I
If
might
you're still
do
here,
that actually.
comment a bunch of green dots in the
What's wrong with you? Anyway, you're trying to source engagement.